Step into a world of magic and limitless possibilities with me, your host, Katie Soul. I'm not just your average podcaster. I'm a former Fortune 100 exec who dared to escape the rat race and embark on my own mystical journey. Together, we'll discover that a mystical life is not something you stumble upon. It's a life you consciously create. Join me as we explore inspiring stories of extraordinary souls who fearlessly pursued their dreams and unlocked their inner radiance. Welcome to my world, where magic awaits and your light shines bright. Hello and welcome to the Mystical Living Podcast. I'm your host, Katie Soul, and I have my dear friend Anissa right here beside me today. We thought we'd do something a little bit different and have this experience in person. So it's extra special for both of us, and I hope you enjoy this format too. For all of our listeners, I am offering a very, very special gift to you for championing the beginning of this podcasting journey, for tuning in and listening. I'm offering 30% off of classes at Soul School with the code podcast as a special gift of gratitude from my heart to yours. And without further ado, let's dive in today. So Anissa, tell us, who are you really?
Ooh, I hate that question, but
I know that's been a theme lately.
Yeah, I feel like when people usually ask, like, who are you? They mean, what do you do for a job?
Mm-hmm.
So I worked as like an investor and in finance for many years. And I still do that a little bit, but now I've founded a company called Alchemar, a platform really that is focused on really the language of symbolism, but through the intersection of tarot, art, dreams. But when we're launching in December, so it'll be exciting. But and then I do tarot readings as well. But Alchemar is really focused on helping people learn their own symbolic language, not just with a tarot deck, but like in their lives, really. So there'll be lots to explore, but we're starting with tarot and art.
Amazing.
Yes.
We're so excited. And by the time this podcast is out in the wild, the launch will be pretty soon.
Yeah, we'll have to do some kind of code for everyone who's listening.
Yes, we will add that to the show notes.
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's take a moment before we really dive in. Anissa's going to lead us in a really simple practice to move us out of our heads where our human self resides with all those worries and fears and to-do lists, and into our heart where our divine self resides. I'm going to turn it over to Anissa now.
So I really, since a lot of my relaxation and heart connection had to be done in like meetings with lots of people, I couldn't do anything that obvious.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
I just remembered a great tip I got from a tantric teacher, and that was to relax your tongue. Because if you can't relax your tongue without your whole body being relaxed. So that's the benchmark for me. So let's just breathe and try and relax our whole bodies and check in on how relaxed your tongue is.
And if your tongue's glued to the roof of your mouth, that probably means it's not relaxed, right?
No. And sometimes like this just happened for me, but sometimes you'll feel a lot of release in your jaw because like, again, you can't keep the tension if your tongue is relaxed. So just let it come, let it do its thing. And then after you feel like you've relaxed into your body, really just check in with your heart, check in with how you're feeling.
Wow. It's so simple.
Yeah.
And a quick way to drop into your heart. I'm going to add that to my repertoire.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The relax your tongue trick is and it's a way to make yourself laugh. Because like if you're really, really stressed and you're sitting there trying to relax your tongue, you end up laughing at yourself, and that's the best transition for anything. So
amazing.
yeah.
Okay, so let's dive in today. I'm curious, how did you come up with a name for your new company?
So my dad's Algerian, so I'm Algerian American. But I was really looking, I think when we think about the sun and the moon, you can think about like your conscious and unconscious, and the sun's obviously your conscious side. And I think a lot of my femininity was part of my sort of shadow unconscious, and also my connection with Algeria was that. And I was sort of playing with words in Arabic, and Kamar is the word for moon. Ooh. So I sort of created it's not an exact translation. I added a Q and I put it all together, but Al-Kamar really is a reference to the moon in Arabic. So that's
so beautiful.
Yeah.
And I like that you added a Q.
I added a Q. I felt like it needed, I don't know, balance or something. I like the 2 Qs.
And maybe something more will reveal itself over time about that extra Q.
Yeah. And I love that I speak Spanish, and amar means to love. So you've got that at the end too. So yeah, I think there's a lot of cool names. Like my friend has a float center in Mexico City, and she named it Calma, obviously means like calming. But when she was like showing me the new logo, I was like, did you realize that alma, the word for soul, is also in it? So it's almost like calming your soul. The way that you can. So I love when you can sort of, see different meanings and symbolism in one word.
Me too. That's what I like about soul, Katie's soul, because soul means sun and Katie means pure. And that's really how I want to walk in the world, is as pure sun. But soul also has this sort of double meaning if you don't see it spelled as your soul.
That's your soul. And you also are full of sunshine. Like you really do radiate brilliance in that sense. So it fits.
Thank you. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit today about your journey to where you are now, because it's been really interesting and similar to me. You found yourself in some more formal settings, maybe with some boxes around you.
Yes.
And I would love to hear about that portion of your life and how you got to where you are today.
So I think it all started for me when I was in my early teens. I think I found my first tarot deck somewhere without really knowing what it was when I was 13. And I knew it was a secret for me. So it was totally a secret until, and it really remained a secret because my family, although now they're super open, I definitely there were some moments of who is this crazy lady? But I went with one of my best friends from childhood, Kayla, to her aunt's house. And they were these lovely 2 women, and we just had a great weekend, and they gifted me my first of my own deck. And so I was probably 15 when I got my own deck and a book. And they took us to get our birth charts read. It was such a great sort of initiation, if we want to think about it that way. And then it became really a secret hobby of mine, because I was at that point, I think I was already in high school. I was in a pretty conservative boarding school where my grandfather and great grandfather had gone, and they weren't ever going to know anything about this. And it really became sort of a very soothing practice for me, and a way to touch my, looking back, I didn't think of this at the time, but I think it was my way of exercising my symbolic mind in a scenario. And I'm lucky because I'm smart, but it's really easy to lean really into your logical mind and getting the good grades and knowing things. And I love all that, but I'm really grateful that at this point I'm integrating both and strengthening both, which I hope everyone can do, because I think it's a really great way to sort of live, but I also think it's a great way to solve problems, to open yourself up to a whole other, element of yourself. When people are always talking about, we only use 10% of our brains. The more and more I think about it, because I feel everyone's but I want my logical brain to get even stronger. And it's if you don't have the foundation of the symbolic mind and the logical mind sort of integrated as a foundation, I don't think we'll get beyond our 10%. So hopefully we can do that.
Okay.
So after high school, I was in college, same thing. It was hidden in my closet. Like my roommates never knew. Went into the world, started working, kept it secret. And then I decided to move to Mexico for work. And I found this like temporary apartment with someone who's now one of my very best friends. And I don't know, on the third night there, she like mentioned something about meditation and tarot. And all of a sudden, she was the first person that I went to my class and I was like, I have a tarot deck. And like, so I learned Spanish. A lot of my Spanish learning also came from like coming home from work, where I learned a lot of Spanish. And I had migraines for the first 6 months that I was there. But we would just read tarot and talk about our day. And like, it was really fun. And so it was a great way to learn. But that, I think, was the beginning of it. And so she started teaching me a little bit of Qigong. She gave me my first sort of formal meditation, Green Tara, which was a beautiful one. And yeah, so it sort of started from there. And then I started actually going and doing more sort of the body therapy, the sort of shamanism with one of my teachers, Gretchen. And there came a point, there just came a point where I just felt like I couldn't do both anymore. And I couldn't, I actually was in a meeting and I worked in commodities, and I was in a meeting and someone was proposing like this deal in Colombia, and it just didn't, like, I almost cried. I had to like dig my nails into my, like the inner wrist, and like just not, it was too hard at that point for me. I think now I could do it, but I hadn't integrated enough. I hadn't like worked enough with things. And so I actually took a sabbatical, and then I ended up, working with startups and progressively worked more in my sort of in my industry, but in more startup kind of atmospheres that have a little more room for the woo
room for the woo.
Yeah. But, the more I think about it, it's really, I wish our educational system in general, like valued the other part, but because I think that's what's missing. I think that's what's missing for so much of our world, is therapy and understanding your symbolic mind and how they can go together. Because I think there's some things that you can really rationalize, but if you really feel into it or you look at the symbolism of it, you can't be okay with it.
Totally.
And so that's how I got here. So I left my last like formal position, and now I've just been working on this and sort of cleaning up some family karma and enjoying life.
Just the regular everyday
stuff. So yeah, so December, I'm really excited for the launch to bring it out into the world.
Me too. I'm so excited. And I think what you speak about is so important. And I feel the same way, that it really starts, the earlier you can start understanding that there's a world beyond this world, and understanding your consciousness, understanding how to move into your heart, you really open your pathways of what you can experience in this lifetime. And while I wish there was more of it in schools, I do feel that coming in. I feel one of my kids works with this amazing kids coach who we're going to have on the podcast too. And he actually left education because he saw what was missing, and in his own experience as an educator, and just the work piling on and really not being able to touch the kids in a deeper way. And so now he's in the UK and they do these Zoom calls, and it's really cool because as a parent, certainly I can teach my kids a lot about consciousness, and my sweet spot's really with adults. And I really love to tap back into those settings that we both came from, whether it's individual or going into a corporation, and really working on how can we raise the consciousness. Because I'm sure, like many of you listening, you, like us, have had those experiences where you've sat in a room where something didn't feel right, where you didn't maybe feel safe to speak up and to share your voice. And I feel really passionate that we need to change that experience so that more and more leaders in corporate settings can go in and can have the tools in their toolkit, and those around them have the tools as well to receive somebody saying, hey, you know what, that doesn't feel right for the people or the process or whatever it might be. And
especially when it's totally legal, like it's legal, common practice. And then there just comes a point where you're like, but it doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
And so that's where I think the logical brain can be very like, but it's, it complies with this and it's good for this. And like, if you look at the return on here, it's like, great. And it's like, but it doesn't feel right. And I think in a corporate setting, you have to choose one or the other. And I think in some sort of spiritual circles too, you have to choose one or the other, because I'm sure you feel that sometimes where like, I'll go to a meditation retreat and people think I'm like weird because I like doing finance kind of stuff. And I enjoy things that aren't
totally
like super ultra spiritual. I love that guy. I haven't seen this on YouTube, but like that ultra spiritual. And then it's like the same side of one coin where it's like either you're super rational, super logical, or you're super spiritual. And it would be nice if we lived in a world where you didn't have to choose between both. So I'm glad that there's a kids coach, because if we can like make that normal when you're young, I think it'll be easier, but it's never too late.
Totally. I'm going to definitely tap into more kids stuff on the podcast as we go forward too, because it's really important as conscious parents, those of us that are parenting in this way, that we have more tools in our toolkit. And that's part of living a mystical life. I always say a mystical life is a life that you consciously create.
Yeah.
So tell us about your current creations in your mystical life. You are on the move a little bit coming up. So
this wasn't my plan for the summer to be here, but it's been nice to have a New England summer. I think I'm going to spend a month in Chicago for the first time. So there's an art exhibit there. And the part that I'm most excited about for Alchemar is that I got my first officially mine tarot gifted to me, which is sort of the old fashioned way. Like you weren't supposed to choose your own or buy your own.
So cool.
And it's great that we can do that. But I feel like, a lot of people just get their decks on Amazon, which is convenient, but it's not very magical.
No.
So there's a symbols library. So you'll go into a symbols library, and then depending on what you are drawn to, you click on that symbol, and then 3 cards from 3 different decks will pop up. And you sort of can feel like which one calls you more. And then, you can explore all 3, but it's like a different way the algorithm will just sort of like, and I love marrying sort of technology, rationality, and then it can be kind of magical. So that's how you'll be able to choose it. And then eventually like it'll take you to the regular sort of boutique side of things. But to do that, I have to like tag every single deck, every single card with like the different symbols I think this card really represents. So that's going to take a little time. So that's going to be my project in Chicago. I think I'm going to lock myself up and do that while enjoying every beautiful thing Chicago has to offer.
And what a gift to all of us to be able to have that experience. And so many people come to me who've never owned a tarot deck or an oracle deck. And they ask like, how do I pick one? And what's the process that you go to? And to have a site like Anissa's where you can go on, and she's done all this deep work behind the scenes to enable us to have this beautiful experience.
And I use all the decks before so I try to use them all in readings, because there's some decks that have beautiful art, and then you get them into a reading and they just don't do anything. Like the energy's not there. They're not touching. Maybe they have a lot of energy, but they don't have like archetypical transformational energy. So it actually kind of messes things up. You can't resolve things or get clarity on things. And then there's some that just have bad energy that we don't, I've opened a couple that like my hand starts hurting and I'm like, we're not using this one.
No,
we're not even, this is here, just not going there. So that's the other thing, is that you don't have to be super sensitive to energy or understand tarot. And hopefully every deck will be something that can like help you explore your own symbolic language, help you see what's happening in your own life. You don't have to be a reader to have tarot too. It can be just a little check-in.
Beautiful. Okay. So for somebody who's new, and it's funny, I don't know, for those watching behind me, I have all these decks here on display. I actually, when I travel, I pick a new deck whenever I go to a new location. And that's sort of like my souvenir, my bring home. I know some people do like an ornament for the Christmas tree or whatever it might be, a magnet, a snow globe. But I collect decks when I travel. And I'm curious for newbies who are like, I'm really curious. I want to get my first deck, but I don't really know what to do with it. Yeah. What do you recommend?
So, context. My favorite part of doing a reading for someone, I always have bunches and bunches of decks. I always choose like 2 or 3 that I'm like, I think these are the ones. And every deck, well, like tarot for newbies is really, it has the 22 major arcana and it has 4 suits and it has like a framework. And there are sort of, you can memorize meanings. And this is part of why I wanted to do Alchemar, because you're going to be able to learn the tarot through art instead of memorizing meanings, which comes in handy. But what I love is finding tarots that have that, like they work in that framework. They have the great energy. They can be transformational, but then they also have their own flavor. And I think it's really funny, like how the flavor, like if you listen to your intuition, like it just comes out that this is the perfect, like the 4 of Cups we pulled for you before. Like, that's not a traditional like rendering of the 4 of Cups. It has the energy, it has the meaning, but it fits for exactly what we were talking about. So I think people, go with the symbols. Like let your symbolic mind speak to you a little more. On the website, you'll have like an art gallery of like, I love contemporary art and I go to a lot of art fairs. So you'll have pictures of different contemporary art and traditional art and Renaissance art or whatever, and just sort of feel what that flavor is. And then you can find that, like, go to the symbols library and like, if the owl is speaking to you, like click on the owl, see which ones come up. And I think choosing the deck, the magical part is to listen to your intuition. So I don't want to give you too many steps. Just like feel it. And like what flavor do you want? Like tarot has many flavors.
Totally. And what's beautiful too is I like to, when I pull a card, I like to really study the card for a minute and just see what I interpret through that art. And what is it meaning to me before I dive in? There's all the decks usually come with a guidebook, and you can dive in and see the interpretation there too. But there's something nice and personal about, and getting into practice where you're getting more tapped into your own intuition by doing that before you dive in.
Yeah, and just also like I can use the same deck in different readings and it has a very different meaning in the context and just what I feel, what I'm zeroing in on, like what's speaking louder in terms of symbology. So there's really not a wrong way to do tarot, which is great.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think for newbies, it's just like get to know it. Pick a card however often you feel like it. Don't get neurotic and start asking like the same question and like doing things, just like let it speak to you and then let it sort of sit. And then see how that shows up in your everyday. Like where else is that energy? You know, maybe there's not a magician with a wand, like the magician comes out for you, but you know, that he usually looks really powerful and like he's got all his tools. And so, you know, if it comes out reversed, you could be thinking about like, okay, well, what tools am I missing? And then go throughout your day, like, what tools am I missing?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be so literal. You know, it could be a training you need or like the tool of self-expression or anything as sort of intangible and tangible. Maybe literally you need a new car. Maybe you can't do your job because you don't have a car.
Sometimes
it can be very, very tangible.
It can be very literal. And it's so beautiful to tap into somebody like Anissa too, when you really feel new to the experience or you're really so deep in, then you can do it for yourself. But it's a beautiful gift. Anissa just did a mini spontaneous reading for me before the podcast, and it illuminated exactly what I needed to see. And it was such a gift to receive and not always be the one doing it for myself. So sometimes just sitting back and receiving, you can have a different experience. And I didn't actually share with her what I was inquiring about, but it came up through the cards pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I think it's always great because tarot is also, if we want to think about tarot as helping you explore your unconscious, and by definition, it's hidden. It's hard for you to see it because you've grown up, or in that moment you don't want to see it.
Yeah.
And it can be beautiful things. It doesn't have to be like
no, this was about something
of doom and gloom, but it's hard to see for yourself. And then so I have people like yesterday I made my one of my best friends and one of my sisters, I was like, get a tarot deck. I need to make a decision. I don't feel like whatever. And so they were pulling cards, and I was like, okay. And as they were telling me which cards they were seeing, it was like, okay. And like you said, like it brings you to that point of clarity, but I couldn't have done that myself.
Yeah. So tap into a trusted friend or call Anissa. And Anissa is actually going to do a reading for us too today for the collective. So maybe now is a good time, because I want to also go into some conversation after this around sacred rage.
Oh, okay. I like it. So we're going to pull some cards from the Sufi Tarot, one of my favorite decks that I discovered this last year.
It is a beautiful deck.
Yeah, I just love these cards. What should we put cards on?
Okay, let's pull for the collective as we close out 2023. What messages are rising for all of us as we close out this year?
Oh, speaking of the magician, we got in this deck, he's the alchemist.
I feel that.
So what's cool about this card, if you can see, he's got all these papers swirling. So it also feels like, all right, you've got your magic, you've got what's going on, and there's energy, but like we need to clean up the loose ends. And this is where sort of the mundane world and the tarot world can very much come together, because it's also obscuring a bit of the view of like the planets, and it's just a little bit of, it's like magic, but don't forget that mental noise in your life can also block things. But I love this card. So there's lots of magic.
In the first module of the How to Really Manifest Your Dreams course in Soul School, it's all about shedding the shit, because we do actually have to clean up our own mess.
And then we've got the Death card, which I love in this one because it's sort of like this path coming forward. You can see like the cleaned up energy, no more papers floating. And the Death card is actually one of my favorite cards.
Me too.
I think after you get to know the tarot, like
it feels scary at first.
Feels scary because you're like, oh, beginning, no. But it's great because it's transformation as you're going along. It's not just the hamster wheel.
Totally.
So I think let's pull one more card as the gift to help us with all of this.
Let's see what the gift is.
Ooh, the Four of Coins. Okay, so the four, in this particular moment, this feels very much like, don't hold, like as we're facing a new beginning, as we're facing, can't hold on too tightly.
Yeah.
So as you're cleaning up things, like there's things that can be like, so we don't want to hold on too tightly to anything. But especially what we need to clean out for 2023, because we're heading into I think a really great year. Next year's an 8 year, which is...
Maybe we should pull one for 2024 too. 2024. I like the 8 year too.
We get the 10 of Coins. So the reward for doing all this cleaning up is more family, more joy. And the 10 of Coins is traditionally more abundance. So,
woo! All right.
For an 8 year.
Come on, 2024. But in order to get there, we got some work to do. We got some cleaning up, some tidying. And right now we're almost stepping into Virgo season. And Virgo season's such a good time to tidy up. I love my Virgos in my life. And they are the ones that keep us organized and together and focused. My moon is in Virgo, so
my Mercury is in Virgo. So
I do carry a little bit of that in myself too. Yeah. Lots of past lifetimes being that Virgo archetype, and it's needed. I was just showing Anissa, I did this altar with my kids in the kitchen. And, it was just needed a refresh. So this is a great way to move energy too, is you just clear the space, you wipe it down, you call in a certain word or phrase. And we did it actually for every room in our house. When we're recording this, is like right before back to school. We want things to feel good and tidy and organized. So the kids each came up with a word for their rooms. Lilette had high vibe for her room. Bennett had organized for his, and we had for the mudroom, tidy, so different words, and just so that we could really call in that energy and to make cleaning and tidying fun too. But it really does shift the energy and the feel. Even Anissa noticed right away when she walked into the house, oh, this is new, this is fresh, and it does feel so good. And it doesn't have to be a whole house overhaul. It's sometimes just these simple practices of just taking one space, whether it's your makeup drawer or your,
just your makeup bag,
the junk drawer. I don't know if everyone has a junk drawer, but we always have like a junk drawer in the kitchen. Definitely. And it just feels good.
And it's another great way. I know there's like 1,000 articles about like how to create an altar. This is what you should have on your altar. And sometimes those guidelines are like really great, like when you want to deepen your relationship with the elements or whatever. But I think it's just a great way. Anything could be on your altar.
Totally.
So like, what are you trying to call in more? What are you trying to work with? What's showing up for you? So it doesn't have to be, you don't have to have, like, I love your crystals, but if you're not a crystals person, you don't need crystals.
No. And what was fun too is, the kids all chose different pieces for this altar. My son got this huge conch shell to put on, which has so much interesting symbolism. And you can have a lot of fun with it and just trust your intuition and make it fun and bring in other people if you feel called to. So speaking of ritual, Anissa just came off of this really beautiful ritual that we don't always think of as necessary or important. But tell us a little bit about how you spent your night last night.
So again, as a preface, I do a lot of sort of body-based therapy where the idea is that your emotions are in your body, and because just to be a good member of society, we have to, and it's a good thing. And in some cases, we don't all want to be like completely unhinged as we walk down the street. But that ends up with a lot of like unlived emotions sort of stored up in your body. And I have someone in my life who I like to call the goblin. So just leave her as the goblin. We clearly don't have a great relationship. And there's a lot of like built up anger that I can't express towards her. I've done a lot of therapy, and you punch pillows, and that's nice and that helps. But I got to the point where I touched my deep rage, and it's been there, and it's like I hate her, or I hate this, or I hate it, or I hate it, I hate it. So I booked myself a rage room last night.
Okay, so what is a rage room?
So basically, you pay to have like lots of stuff that you can break. The particular rage room I went to also had this and I wasn't expecting it. They have this element where you can do like paint too, which felt a little too like fun for me. Like this was to touch like my anger and my rage and my hate. And so I chose like all these glasses. There was, speaking of symbolism, like the duck is sort of a symbol in my family that like I've been trying to transform, but there was a duck mug there. I was like, we're taking this lamp, this huge bowl, and you go into a room. And I didn't know this ahead, or I would have made my own soundtrack. But there's a little phone outside where there's Spotify, and you can like choose the music you want.
Cool.
And then basically they give you all these implements to destroy like everything. And it's a safe space to do it because it's got, you're in a full jumpsuit, you've got a full face mask on. Like I don't recommend doing this not in a professional setting, but then so you pick your like creative stuff, and then they add stuff, and then they like set it up in the room, and then you can
curate your anger room.
So there's these two like barrels that they like set things up on, and then there's like a wall that's covered in like chicken wire, I think, and they put the frames up so like there's a little bit of give, like an appliance or two. And I just started like hitting things, like breaking things, and it was like I was in a good mood when I went. I was like, maybe I should have waited for a day, but you have to book ahead. So all right, this is it. And it was so liberating. I mentioned that, like, I was thinking about this morning when I was getting ready. And like, if you don't remove the rage, if you don't like let it out, because the funny thing happened, I was so joyful afterwards, but not because I was like joyful about my rage. It was like, I let it out. I left it there.
You transmuted the energy.
And I went with that intention. Like I didn't, like I went and I was like, I'm just going to like, today's the day that I'm going to let myself express 100% of it. I used a crowbar. I used a monkey wrench. I used a baseball bat. It was, and yeah, I had Marilyn Manson on. Like it was like not my typical day, but it felt so good afterwards, and it really opened my heart. I mean, I woke up this morning, I told you I had so much energy. I didn't go to bed until like 2 a.m. because I was just like, I had this rush of energy that I felt like, so my metaphor is that, you know, if you buy these beautiful creams and serums, but you never wash your face, like it's great. Like they'll probably do something, but if you don't wash your face, you're never going to get that full benefit of anything. And so it felt like just washing away a really big layer of rage that I'd gotten in touch with, but like, it's hard to find a safe space to like really express that. And better in a rage room than with some unsuspecting person in your life that happens to trigger it.
Totally.
And doesn't deserve it. So.
And I love that you put this sacred intention. You booked the rage room with intent. Yeah. You knew that you were wanting to move the energy that was stuck around this particular relationship. And I think it's so beautiful. So important. You know, it is really necessary to scream and yell and let these emotions out.
And it was great because everyone, like the music was really loud outside too. So at first I was sort of like, do I need to warn them that I'm probably going to be yelling and screaming? And I didn't. And like, they didn't flinch when I came out, and they gave me some paint. They're like, here, try this. And I was like, this is not for happy time. But at the end, I actually like, I put the paint on and like smashed something, but I felt like it was like the end of it. It was like sealing the moment. And then I just left, and it was just like, okay. And that was it. So, I think I love your phrase, shedding the shit.
Shedding the shit.
But I think that we've got so much internal shit too.
Yeah.
And that's okay. We all do. And that's not bad. But I think, in mystical living, it's really important to do that, because that's what lets so much other energy shine and flow.
Totally. And the reality is, it's, you know, I teach everyone in the course, it's not a one-time thing. Yeah. You know, we don't just shed it once. It's a practice. And in the course, we actually schedule it. Like we schedule different aspects of shedding and put it on the calendar so that we are constantly doing that. And when we do that, then we make room for new to enter. But if you just keep piling on more shit, and not letting it go, it's just like, you know, a house. If you just keep adding things into your home and not taking things out, not donating, not giving away, not disposing of things that are broken or unusable or repurposing, then, you know, you become a hoarder. And we don't want to become hoarders with our emotions and our angers either. We want to release those things.
No, and it's really nice, because sometimes it's not even bringing in something new. It's just uncovering something that didn't have space, or like wasn't able to be expressed because it was under that. And this morning I was reminded that like the heart chakra, like every chakra has its right, and the heart, because I was kind of like, that's weird that like that was so joyful.
That your heart,
but the heart chakra's right is to act and to express. And so if you're able to give yourself that like sacred space in a rage room, you can express everything that's not really acceptable to accept, like, you know, to express upon somebody else, even if it's an authentic emotion. And I think that's what I think rage rooms are amazing now.
Amazing. So everyone, book your rage room. Don't try it at home. Do it in a safe masked setting where you're
jumpsuit,
not going to have any glass. Like,
yes, you don't want that
flying in your face.
Yeah, and you probably don't have a crowbar and a monkey wrench available. So.
No, I definitely don't have those items here at the house
ready, but they were great.
I know. And do they let kids go too? Is
I
it?
think you can. There must be an age limit, but when I was signing the waiver, it was like, are you an adult or a minor?
Okay, interesting.
And you could have more than one person in the room, which maybe, I don't know. I felt like for kids, I think it would be good to have somebody else in the room. But I think there was something about just not having anyone look at me, like going to town on things that like maybe I don't want people to see, or like I wanted a space that I could just be 100% me. But apparently they have birthday parties there too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So interesting. I keep a really large punching bag in the basement, and when I can feel like energy and somebody in the house like building, I'm like, you know what? Why don't you go spend a few minutes and really, do some movement with the punching bag.
One of my teachers, when he was doing his master's, and he's a Mexican, so he's still living at home, he got a punching bag for the whole family and everyone like went down and did it before dinner, and it totally transformed like the conversations at dinner because you were able to get like the frustration of the day out. So I think punching bags are a great like everyday like just maintenance, and then every once in a while you need a restroom. Yeah.
And I like this one, the one we have like you can kick it, you can punch it, you can do all the things.
That's good.
All right, good.
Totally necessary.
Okay, we're on to something here.
I like it.
All right, let's shift for a minute because I want to talk about the dream time. And I know that you've done a lot of dream work over the years. Tell everyone, like, what does it mean to work with the dream time?
It's really interesting because especially when you're working, you don't have a lot of time during the day necessarily to do something. So it's a very efficient use of your time. But it's really, I'm lucky. I've always remembered my dreams pretty easily.
Me too.
So I didn't have to figure out how to remember my dreams.
Yes. Which you can do.
Which you can do. I like to think of dreams as like little movies of your life. And everything in the dream is really about you. And it's really just fragmented pieces of yourself, or like more archetypical things of yourself. And dreams, I think, are really just there to help us figure out our life in the best way possible. So I do dream work. Sometimes, again, I go to a friend that's trained in like sort of dream therapy, and I'm like, all right, I had this dream. I can't figure it out. And since dream time is your time for your unconscious to talk to you, it's like very great sort of experiences for you to have. So yeah, that's how I work with dreams. I don't even write them down necessarily. But when you sort of wake up after a dream and you're in that sort of moment of the sleep cycle, what I do is like, I almost like tell myself to remember these things. And you don't have to remember every single detail, but again, it's like a language of symbolism. So pick out the things that are like showing up and are most important. And I find usually if I have like 2 or 3 of those the next day when I wake up, I can remember the whole dream after. I'm like, oh no, it was about something with like, there was a shell and Katie was there. And then all of a sudden the whole dream comes back.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, I just try to like talk about the dreams with someone or just write about them. But I think it's just, again, it's another way to like see what you're not seeing, and think of it as a way to expand your awareness, your consciousness, your understanding of yourself, your understanding of situations. Because it's really easy for us to sort of deny how we're feeling about things. And then when I don't have someone there and I'm sort of stuck, I'll pull some cards around, like, okay, so what was this representing? And because tarot is sort of this like convenient packet of symbols, it like helps you, okay, so that was the devil, this is the magician, this is that, and you can kind of work out how your subconscious is speaking to you.
I love that. I also do write my dreams down every night, every morning, because it's helpful for me to look at them over a course of a period of time. And I like to do that. So I'll look at them maybe every 30 days or so, once a month, and just sort of see, okay, like what themes were coming out throughout all of these dreams.
No, that's if I were more disciplined, I would do that too. But I think it's a great practice. And it's one of those things, because the more, I think, when you can't dream if you're not sleeping well. So I also think it's a really great indicator of how deeply you're sleeping and you're resting.
That's a good point.
And we need our brains for our everyday life and for our dreaming life. So
totally.
That's I think Alkamar is going to get into some brain health stuff that I've been experimenting with myself.
Ooh, okay, give us a little teaser.
Oh, well, I think like sleeping is really important. So like tracking your sleep.
I agree.
Really figuring out how to get into deeper sleep. I've been working with some different herbs, trying to figure out ways to like relax and different sort of nighttime routines, because I think everyone has a different nighttime routine. I started also, and it's weird, I don't know if that's what's been helping me sleep better, but I started taking cold, like no hot water at all. I'm not sure I could do this in the winter, but like right now it's summer, so it's okay. And it's somehow like opening up apparently like raises your dopamine levels like 250%. The week that I started doing that, I started sleeping much more deeply.
Okay, so you're taking a cold shower?
Cold shower.
At night?
No, in the morning.
Oh, in the morning?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it like, you know, I've been doing this before where you go out and you get sunshine. Yeah. And I felt like that wasn't helping like really, I don't know, wake me up in the morning or rhythm. Yeah, exactly. So I don't know. The cold showers are really great.
Cold showers. We'll I'm a big fan of the cold plunge, cold shower.
I didn't think I would ever like them.
I know. Yeah, but then they get really addicting, don't they? Because they give you this like surge of like, whoo.
Yeah, no, I lived in New Orleans for a year during the pandemic, and there was this place called Vibrant Market. You would love it. We should go sometime.
Okay.
But the owner there, Lauren, and another woman that works there, Sarah, like I was coming in for the red light therapy, which was just a nice, like easy, like kind of thing. They're like, don't you want to try the cold plunge? I was like, absolutely not. And I was like, fine, I'll do it. Because I'm competitive. So, you know, I was like, yeah, fine, of course, I'm not a win. I found like my sweet spot was 3 minutes, and that was all I wanted.
3 minutes is perfect, I think.
And that was just a great year to have that down the street.
When I was on Necker Island about a month ago, they have this beautiful cold plunge right on the beach. And so we were kind of having a good time, and everyone was taking turns in the cold plunge, and you could refresh it so it would get colder water over time. And there were a few competitive people in the mix, and some of the amounts of time were getting quite high. But for me, 3 minutes, I think you get what you need in 3 minutes, and beyond that is just not necessary.
I feel like you stressed your kidney or something.
I think so.
There was this guy that got up to like 40 minutes.
Wow.
But he couldn't go anywhere. His body wouldn't stop shivering. Like he had to like just.
I think eight was the top in the group.
Yeah, he was a little extreme, but
40.
No judgment, just not for me.
Okay, so as we begin to wrap up, tell us all the ways that people can find you, get in contact, and we'll put it in the show notes too.
So Instagram is an easy way to get in touch with me. I'm Joie d'Anissa, which is a play on joie de vivre, so JOIEDANISSA. You can also reach me at, I think by the time this comes out, I'm going to have Anissa at Joie d'Anissa up and running. So that if you want a reading, if you're curious about things, you can email me there. And then Alkamar is ALQQAMAR. And that'll be a website where, as of next week when we're recording this, you'll be able to sign up for the newsletter and get the launch notice and maybe invitations to be in the beta test group that I'll do. So
love a good beta test. I will be in the beta test group. Yes, I'm also my old corporate friends. Now I'm also very good at QA. Yeah, it's like a hidden talent.
It is a hidden talent, and it's nice to have like people you trust to do it.
Oh my gosh,
I really want this to be a site that's works well, and that, you know, the fulfillment center I think is going to be really great at like putting things together. We're doing the finishing like version of the packaging design right now, so I'm excited to see what the experience of opening it is. And I hope it's a way to bring a little more magic to like the new wave of being able to actually like choose your own deck. And I'll have gift certificates, so if you want someone else to have that like experience, they can do that. But and then it just
what a great present!
It'd be like a little bit of a surprise. So
I love it.
Woo!
Exciting. Amazing. So check out Anissa in all the places and book a reading with her in the meantime. It's really a treat. And before we close out, do you have any parting wisdom that's just like raising to your heart that you want to share?
I don't know. I think it's really find your own flavor. Like, I think that's not emphasized enough.
Find your own flavor.
Path, it's there.
Yeah.
Really find your own flavor. Don't feel like you have to dress one way or that you have to have this or that. If it calls to you, like, do it.
I love it. Yeah. I love that so much. And also, it's okay to take off the layers of yourself too, and really come deeper and deeper. Yeah. So wash your face. You can put on all the beautiful adornments after and the lotions and potions. Sometimes there's beauty just in the simplicity of washing your face and really seeing the true essence of who you are and gazing in the mirror and giving that beautiful face a smile. All right. Thank you, Anissa.
Thank you so much for having me.
So much fun. Bye, everyone. I'm grateful for your presence on this remarkable and captivating journey today. Together, we've delved into the realms of limitless possibilities and unlocked the secrets of our true selves. A mystical life is not a mere coincidence. It's a thrilling adventure that you actively shape with intention and passion. Remember, when you follow your light, you not only illuminate your own path, but you also radiate light to the world around you. The world eagerly awaits the magic you have to offer. Follow your light and let it guide you to incredible heights.